not solutions. Add-on desires.
Hello everyone, welcome to our daily news analysis session. I am Lokesh Pengonda and today's topics will be from The Hindu. Let's see the first topic of today. 25 lakh people signed for COVID vaccine on first day of expanded rollout. So how did they sign up for getting COVID vaccinations? This will be through CoWIN portal. So first, look into what CoWIN portal is. CoWIN portal is also called as COVID Vaccine Intelligence Network. So in short, CoWIN app. So this platform is originally owned by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. It was earlier used for conducting pulse polio and other critical immunization programs across the country. So this app is not being used exclusively for COVID vaccinations. This app has already been in use for several other immunization programs. This app will be maintained by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology and NIC for back-end and technical infrastructure support. So this CoWIN app, it's a cloud-based IT program. It will handle even the minute details regarding the COVID vaccination program. It may include the people who wants to get COVID vaccine. It includes who already got vaccines. It includes not only of the medical staff who are in the database, but it also includes the live monitoring of the vials. It is vials in the sense live monitoring of vaccines in the cold storage. So other features of the app will be monitoring and tracking. This app enables monitoring of the vaccination drive and tracking of listed beneficiaries on real-time basis. So within a minute of something happening, of someone getting a vaccine, you will get a correct and clear idea of the people who already got their vaccinations done and who wants to get it done. And second, it is Aadhaar enabled. So let's say a person A already got his first dose done, but he wants to get one more dose so that he feels more secure. But as we are using Aadhaar enabled identification, he might not be able to does this. So more about the CoWIN app. It is a user-friendly app. You can download it from the Play Store. It will be used for not only for recording vaccine data, but it also will have database of the health workers. So 1 and 2. It will have separate modules for administrator, for registration, for vaccination, for beneficiary acknowledgement, and for reports. Once people start to register in their app, the platform will upload bulk data on comorbidity. So let's say a person has downloaded this app and registered himself to get this vaccination done. So after getting registered, the local authorities in that area will send the persons with comorbidities, that is the person who have some other diseases, who are suffering from some other kind of ills. So this data will be used to prioritize the people who already registered to get the vaccine done. So who will be prioritized? There are so many people who wants to get the vaccine done. So, but this vaccination can be given in a priority. So the main important priority segments will be for healthcare workers in both government and private healthcare institutions. For frontline workers may be the police personnel, people in paramilitary forces, people working in municipal administration, people in other defense organizations and disaster management volunteers. And apart from these priority populations, we have prioritized age groups, that is those who have aged about 50 years and having some other comorbidities, that is suffering from some other diseases. So these are the priority sector people. So the second article of today's discussion is regarding Iran deal. This article talks about why Iran deal renegotiation is important. So first, let's talk about Iran deal and its background. Iran has been developing nuclear related materials even when the whole world is against this. So despite international san So what Iran was doing was, even against the international ideas, it was developing its nuclear program. So in 2006, starting from 2006, United Nations, United States of America, European Union and some other countries imposed sanctions. These sanctions was meant to tell Iran to stop the nuclear program. So these sanctions were mainly focused on three sectors. One, oil, because Iran gets a majority of its foreign reserves by exporting oil to other countries. Second, on weapons. So if Iran wants to buy or sell weapons, this will be regulated and this will be sanctioned. Next, financial transactions. In this arena, Iranian banks which have foreign accounts with more than $100 billion, this amount is frozen. So these Iranian banks can't withdraw their funds and they can't use it. So what happened was, after 2006 and 2009 sanctions, let's see here, during 2012 and 13, the Obama administration has increased sanctions. So in 2010, there was a GDP growth of 5.7%. In 2011, GDP growth is 3.1%. After tightening of the sanctions, the GDP growth contracted by 7.7% and later by 0.3%. So in 2015, what happened was, Iran and other countries signed a nuclear deal called as Iran Nuclear Deal, or Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. So through this deal, Iran has agreed that it will limit its uranium enrichment program to a certain level, and in return for limiting its uranium enrichment program and limiting its nuclear ambitions, what it got was, it got relaxations of sanctions from Western countries, particularly United States, European Union and other European Union members. So this deal was signed by P5+1. P5 is the permanent 5 in the United Nations Security Council who has veto powers. This P5 members are China, France, Russia, United Kingdom and United States, plus Germany and European Union as a whole. This Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, as we've discussed earlier, it will limit Iran's uranium enrichment until 2030. That is 15 years, as it was signed in 2015. It will limit it till 2030, and it will be able to monitor the happenings in Iran's nuclear program. So through this deal, Iran got its sanctions revoked, and you can see in 2016 its GDP was again growing, but in 2018 suddenly what happened was, United States under new president, the then president Donald Trump, he withdrawn from this agreement. So he withdrawn and later again started putting sanctions on the country's top elite members, top generals and other council of ministers of Iran parliament and Iran administration. So why Mr. Trump has withdrawn from this Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action was, this deal that did not have any agreement regarding ballistic programs. Ballistic programs are normal missiles which Iran was developing. These missiles have long range and they are very powerful. So in this deal, there was no talk and there was no limit set on ballistic programs of Iran. So Mr. Trump wants to have limitations, and Mr. Trump wants to have control on Iran's ballistic program. And the second issue was its proxies are not limited through this deal. So what we have is Iran supporting various proxies. Proxies are militias in countries like Yemen. In Yemen, Iran supports Houthis, which we've discussed earlier. In Syria, in Lebanon, and even in its neighboring Iraq. Iran supports these militias with weapons and with other technologies to get the ambitions of Iran happen. So after 2015, after 2018, Mr. Trump's unilateral exit, what happened was the other members, let's say the European members and China and Russia, they want to get back to this deal, but Mr. Trump was reluctant to agree to this. So Iran was patient. It was patient because it started negotiating for a reversal of this revoking order, but its patience had run out recently because Iran has been facing so many problems recently. So what are these problems Iran facing right now? Inflation. Iran had witnessed inflation of 40% in 2019, and its inflation is estimated to be 34% in 2020. So with high inflation rate, it had to go through numerous problems, and in fact it even changed its currency a few years back. So apart from this, there was rising unemployment rate, fall in exports because America and other its allies started sanctions on Iran. So what happened was it cannot export its oil to other countries. Even India, who was a main buyer of Iranian oil earlier, it had to completely, like negligibly, is getting its oil from Iran now. So as it cannot export its oil and other businesses, its forex reserves are coming down. Also, as we have seen earlier, its GDP has been contracting. Its GDP has contracted 7% in 2019 and 6% in 2020. So due to all this, there is a fall in real income, there is fall in technology, and there is fall in tourism. Its major exports, oil and weapons, had a drastic slowdown, and also due to COVID pandemic, the country has witnessed nearly 60,000 deaths and 16 lakh COVID infections in the last 2 years since the pandemic had started. So as Iran was saying it will start enriching its program again, the other members of the JCPOA, what they did was they started INSTEX. INSTEX was instrument in support of trade exchanges. So this was mainly to overcome the American sanctions by trading in some other currency, not in dollars. But this whatever INSTEX, it is not functioning. It has functioned only once in 2 years. So the exports has been pretty low for Iran from the last 2-3 years. So this is all what happened. So let's see what would be the way forward. Iran should stop supporting proxies because these proxies not only create instability in the regions, it also creates mayhem, loss of lives, and creates other terrorists. So Iran should stop supporting the proxies. It should release the foreign nationals, especially of United States, United Kingdom, and other Western countries' nationals who it has arrested. It should come back to the negotiation table. What Western countries should do is Iran's application in IMF for loans, it should be cleared. Iran, as we have seen earlier, it has been facing many problems due to lack of forex reserves, lack of exports, lack of tourism, and other issues due to COVID pandemic. So what it did was it applied for a loan in the International Monetary Fund. But as the Western countries have a significant share in the voting, they blocked this loan application. So this loan should be processed in the IMF. And second, the international COVAX facility. This facility was originally established to provide vaccines for COVID-19. So by providing COVID-19 vaccines to Iran, the country may come back with lesser number of infections by saving its citizens from infections. So other countries in the regions which are neutral, like Oman, Qatar and Kuwait, they should help in the negotiation process between the Western countries and Iran. And India should support the process of renegotiation because Iran is an important partner in the Middle East to India. Iran, we are having an agreement with Chabahar port. We depend on Iran for our oil imports, and we export many number of items including medicines and other commodities. So Iran, if it comes out of these sanctions, it will be helpful for both Iran and India. Thus, India should support the renegotiation process. Next, Chinese cyber attack thwarted by ministry. So what happened in 2020 was there was a huge power outrage in the Mumbai. There is lack of power supply to many parts of the city in October 2020. So recently, US company Recorded Future has released a report which stated that Red Echo, which is a group supported by China-sponsored elements, this group is a cyber group. It targeted the Indian installations, Indian power sector in the October 2020, and it was the result. It caused Mumbai outage. So this happened by Red Echo's ShadowPad. This ShadowPad is a malware used by Red Echo to infiltrate into the power sector systems and other critical infrastructure. After infecting this, they took control of some systems and they got the power supplies down. So what was the impact of this power outrage in Mumbai? Without power, no electric vehicles can be charged. Without power, the metro trains stopped, and you had witnessed many metro trains and many commuters being stranded in between their pathways and in between their destinations, as there was no power, no industries and no businesses could run, because any industry would require power for its operations. So there was also no internet as a result of lack of power supply. If there is no internet, you can't use any financial online transactions, you can't order food from Zomato, you can't do any other internet dependent firms related services. So other issues regarding no signaling of system, as there was no power supply, there was no traffic lights working in the roads, and there was other problems with regarding to signaling systems, not only at the ports but also at the railways. Other sector which was impacted by this is hospitals. As there was no power supply, there will be issues while doing operations for scanning any data and for any other medical usages. Ports, the seaports and airports are also being adversely affected due to this. And even the critical communication infrastructure which is dependent highly on the power supply had been impacted due to this. And also there is an issue regarding the sudden power cuts. The sudden power cuts might lead to system failure, and it may cause mayhem. It may cause fire, it may cause any other accident. So these are all the impacts which we had due to the sudden outrage in the Mumbai power supply. So what's needed? What's the way forward? Number one, we should strengthen all important systems. We should have firewalls. We should be installing antiviruses which are powerful and which can withstand the Chinese cyber attacks. This will be the first thing. Second, strengthen counter cyber capabilities, because now you have state-sponsored cyber attacks. They have latest technology and they have latest resources. With these resources, they are able to get into many number of systems which have vulnerabilities in their systems. So you should strengthen your country's counter cyber capabilities. Even earlier, we have witnessed USA alleging that Russia had sponsored many cyber attacks on USA. Educate the common people who use electronic devices. With people using more number of smartphones, it is important for them to understand the problems the cyber attacks could have. So these people should have a little knowledge about this, and government and private sector and even the NGOs should have a say in this, should do something about this. Raise the issue at the international bodies and also at bilateral level. So what happens is, whenever you raise an issue regarding this, other countries will also know what China is doing, and similar, whenever some other country also faces the same issue, we can come together and we can question the China at the international level. So its standing at the international level will go down, and it will also have humiliation effect on this. Work with other like-minded countries. So as I said earlier, USA had alleged that Russia is behind some cyber attacks which USA had witnessed last year. So other like-minded countries like USA, South Korea, Japan, which are regularly witnessing cyber attacks and other country-sponsored attacks from Russia and China, we should come together to form an alliance to have greater capabilities and greater strengths to counter these attacks. Conduct regular audit on cyber security. What happens is, whenever you have a regular audit on cyber security, you would know the vulnerabilities and various problems in future it might have. So after getting this audit done, you can take precautionary steps so that in future you would not be suffering any attacks. Next, third article of today, loan waiver and state fiscal capacity drought. So what this article mainly is talking about is, whenever a state or even a central government elections are coming up, the government and the political parties in the state and the center, what they do is, they will announce numerous number of subsidies, waivers to get votes in the coming up election. So in a similar context, the government of Tamil Nadu, what it announced was, it announced rupees 12,000 crores loan waivers to farmers who have taken loans from cooperative banks. So this amount taken by the farmers from the cooperative banks will be repaid back by the state government and not the farmers who had originally taken the loans. So first, let's look into what is loan waiver. When a borrower is freed from the obligation to repay the debt he has taken, the debt includes principal or the interest or both. It may be partial or it may be fully. So what happens is, state governments sometimes announce these policies not only for political gains, but also in some context when the state people, when the state citizens are facing numerous problems, the state government sometimes announce these, so the debt of these persons will be reduced. So many state governments, including Tamil Nadu, which we have discussed now, it has announced more than 12,000 crores as a loan waiver in 2021. Also states like Karnataka, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh has announced various waivers before or after the general elections. So the government has announced this loan waiver. There is another political party This political party has offered not only of waiving of loans which are taken from cooperative banks, it will also waive loans taken from banks if it comes to power. This is what they say. So what happens is you have loan waivers to farmers, to education, to small traders and weavers. You also giving subsidies for electricity, for water bills and for interest subvention. So this all will be a huge burden on the state governments, because the state governments due to COVID pandemic had been witnessing falling revenues in the last year. Also, there are some other negative impacts of loan waiving. Let's look into this. First, it puts additional pressure on the government which already have low fiscal capacity. In our country, many states and even the center borrows money from from RBI, from banks and through other sources to fund its expenditure. So already they are taking loans to fund their expenditure. Now, by announcing these loan waivers, the government has to take more loans. Second, it increases revenue expenditure without proportional tax and non-tax revenue increase. So what happens is the government sometimes announce reduction of tax rates also, but by reducing tax rates, it encourages the private sector to invest more money, to start more businesses. Thus, by reducing the tax rates, the governments get more revenue in the long term. But in this condition, there won't be any proportional tax or non-tax revenue increase. Third, it increases the revenue deficit. Revenue deficit is revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. So whatever if the government is spending more than its income, then you have revenue deficits. Thus, primary deficit will be low. What is primary deficit? Primary deficit is fiscal deficit minus interest obligations. Interest obligations. Let's say if fiscal deficit is 1 lakh, fiscal deficit is the amount of money the government is borrowing on a whole. So these are the negative impacts of loan waiving which we explained just now. So it puts pressure on the government which already have low fiscal capacity. It increases revenue expenditure without any proportional gain. It increases revenue deficit and debt increases. As the debt increases, the interest payments which have to be paid by the government in future also increases. Also, the primary deficit, which mainly explains about the debt, the interest obligations of the government. It says that if the interest obligations of the government is more, it is showing that only for paying back the interest, the government is borrowing money. So there is also one more important issue, that is the opportunity cost. The money which are being spent by the government on various subsidies and various loan waivers, this money can actually be used for spending on capital expenditure. This capital expenditure will have a huge impact in the long term. It will not only create employment, but it also have a positive impact on the GDP growth. So by using the money not on spending capital expenditure but on spending for loan waivers, the government is preventing any growth in the PSUs. This is important in the context of COVID-19 because last year there are many PSUs which have suffered hugely because these PSUs like road transport corporations of the state governments, road transport corporations and other departments, they have been incurring huge losses in the last 1 to 2 years due to COVID pandemic. And one important aspect is whenever there is a anticipation that the government might announce loan waivers. What happens is even those capable of repaying back their loans, let's say there is person A, he has capability to repay the loans he has taken, but what he does is he anticipates that okay, the elections is coming, there may be an announcement by the government regarding the loan waivers. So what he does is he would not pay back his interest obligations, he would not pay back his debt. So these are the main negative aspects of the loan waiving. So what does this article recommend? It recommends that the investments and the expenditure of the government should be prioritized towards creating PSUs, strengthening PSUs, and for other capital assets construction and development. As these capital assets and PSUs will have a long-term benefits, this will have low inflation problem, low or no inflation problem in the future. Also, no loan waivers will make those capable of paying to repay the loans. So what happens is, so if there are no loan waivers in a long term, people who have taken the loans, what they do is they will think that there will be no more loan waivers, and those capable of repaying back their loans will at least repay it back. So the banks and the cooperatives will be benefited in this case. So this is what the article talks about. So issues with Supreme Court. This article mainly talks about the master of the roster. Master of the roster, he is the Chief Justice of Supreme Court or High Court of that respective states. So they have an important power, that is allocation of work between various judges and benches. So let's say a case is coming to the High Court or a Supreme Court. The Chief Justice of that particular court, he provides this work to a specific bench on his own. So let's see, in Supreme Court there are 34 Supreme Court judges, 33 Supreme Court judges, and one Chief Justice of India. So Chief Justice of India allots these cases to various judges and various benches. So what happens is there has been many number of allegations in the past stating that there is favoritism and bias while giving this work, while allotting the cases to benches. In 2018, what happened was the then Chief Justice of India, Mr. Deepak Mishra, he had been alleged these judges of Supreme Court, Mr. Gogoi, Mr. Chalameshwar, and other justices, they started a press conference and they alleged that Chief Justice of India, Deepak Mishra, had been allotting cases on favoritism and on biasedness. But what happened was, even after Mr. Gogoi himself becoming Chief Justice of India, this allegations of favoritism and bias did not die down. Even now, many people allege the same thing, but nothing solid has happened on the ground. So, what are the other issues with the Supreme Court? Other issues regarding appointments and transfers of judges. Appointments and transfers of judges from Supreme Court and High Court. Even in this condition, there has been many allegations that this collegium system has been biased, has been showing favoritism. This is the second issue with the Supreme Court. Third issue. In the recent times, what we have witnessed is the practice of sealed covers. So what sealed covers, it's mainly about whenever the government or whenever a petitioner files a petition in the Supreme Court, when he says that the information is confidential, Supreme Court allows them to submit their petition and to submit the information in sealed covers. So what happens is, this is against the idea of, so submitting documents in a sealed cover is against the idea of being open and of being transparent. These are the main concerns right now at the Supreme Court level. So what's the way forward? Consultative process. So even in other countries there have to be appointments of justices to higher courts. So in these countries like United Kingdom and Australia and Canada and some other countries, what happens is for allocation of work and for appointments and transfers, there will be a consultative mechanism between the justices of that particular court. So only after the consultative process, the allocation of work will be done. So in this case, there won't be any scope for biasness or for favoritism. This should be followed in India. The other process, there should be a policy that will prescribe the cool-off period of judges who has retired, but they are taking appointments right after their retirement. So we have Mr. Let's say Justice Gogoi, Chief Justice of India, Gogoi. Mr. Gogoi, right after his retirement, he has been nominated for Rajya Sabha. So there hasn't been much time period between his retirement and between his appointment. So what the article has been suggesting is there should be a government policy which should state the cooling off period so that there won't be any attraction or there won't be any biasness towards the government by the judges who will be retiring soon. So these are other issues in the Supreme Court as we have discussed earlier: appointment and transfers, sealed cover, and post-retirement appointments. So let's come to prelims questions of the day. The term red echo, which is recently seen in the news, it refers to: does it refer to the new sound discovered at the North Pole, new rover of NASA for its coming Mars mission? Is it DRDO's anti-ballistic missile, or is it a malware? The right answer is it is a malware. We have this. It is a cyber group. Behind the Mumbai power outrage. So let's correct this. It is not a malware. It is a cyber group which is sponsored by China. So second question of today. What is COVID portal? It stores the details of those who recovered from COVID. Or is it a database of people who lost their jobs during the pandemic? Or does it deals with monitoring and managing of COVID-19 vaccinations? Or is it about database consisting of all the medical professionals who worked during COVID? So the correct answer is it is a portal for monitoring and managing of ongoing COVID vaccinations, which we have discussed in our first topic of today's session. So it is a cloud-based IT platform to handle minute details of COVID immunization program. Which of these countries are blacklisted by Financial Action Task Force? North Korea, Syria, Iran, and Pakistan. So which among them do you think are blacklisted by Financial Action Task Force? Choose the correct option. Only North Korea and Iran are currently in the blacklist of FATF. This question is in the context of Pakistan still being in the grey list. Which of the following situations contribute to the cause of inflation situation in an economy? We have discussed earlier that Iran has been witnessing high amount of inflation growth with nearly 30%, 40% in the last 2 years. So does demand supply gap increases inflation? Does excess circulation of money causes inflation? Does increase in tax rates causes inflation? The correct answer will be only 1 and 2, because increase in tax rates will increase government's revenues, will decrease the amount of money left with the private firms and the taxpayers. So as they don't have money to spend, there won't be any inflation in this case. Previous year's question paper, we have taken a question from 2018. Economically, one of the results of British rule in India in 19th century was it an increase in the export of Indian handicrafts, growth of number of Indian owned factories, commercialization of Indian agriculture, rapid increase in urban population? We can easily deduct that there was no increase in exports in the long term. There was no high growth of number of Indian owned factories. There was in fact decrease in the urban population. So the answer is C, commercialization of Indian agriculture. So with this question, we have come to the end of this session. Thank you.
Addod Solutions. Add-on